Yeah.
Thank everyone. Thank you for coming in for the meeting. Wait, school year. Day of September. President. With number 4. All. I will have. Turn it over to interpreters. To introduce the spell. It's Mandarin.
The following 晚上好，如果需要普通话翻译，请拨打电话号码347-966-4114，请输入 ID 号码878-075-111，井号键。再重复一遍，如果需要普通话翻译，请拨打347-966-4114。ID 号码是878-075-111，井号键。Thank you, the Mandarin announcement.
And let's next Daniel.
শুভ সন্ধ্যা সবাইকে। আপনারা যদি এই অনুষ্ঠান বাংলায় শুনতে চান, আপনারা ডায়াল করতে পারেন 347-966-4114। নাম্বারটা আবার বলছি 347-966-4114। তারপর আপনারা একটা আইডি নাম্বার দিবেন, ওটা হলো 791-002-774#। আইডি নাম্বারটা আবার হলো 791-002-774#। ধন্যবাদ। থ্যাংক ইউ।
And Ben.
Hola, buenas tardes. Para conectar y escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor marque 347-966-4114. Y el PIN es 912-134-068. Signo numeral. Otra vez el número es 347-966-4114 y el código es 912-134-068, signo numeral. Gracias. Thank you. All done.
Antonia, ask to speak louder. Yeah. So there's that. It's gonna.
They can't see us, so that's
It's
facing them. It's not
But
tracking.
I think when you talk,
Oh,
we'll face you.
if I talk. I mean, I'm there. Okay. That better?
It's 3 screens, so I think, yeah,
Better than
for you to talk.
what it was before. All right, let's call the roll. Council member present, council member. Absent, council member Vanessa Gonzalez Huelga. She's on her way. Council member present, council member Bettina Rogers. Present. Council member Jonathan Davis has Absence, Councilmember Hans Arietta,
Present.
Councilmember Donalda Tony, she's on her way too. Councilmember Nancy Randall, present. Councilmember Denley Vidal. Don't look for him, yeah, but. At the moment, okay. Note the time when we reach that. And, Una, do you have access to this document?
I do.
Would you like to read the introduction?
Sure. Okay, thank you all for coming to the District 15 Community Education Council tonight. We really appreciate your time and we're glad that you could join us. For those of you here or on Zoom who are new to CEC meetings, there are 32 CECs throughout the city, plus 4 citywide councils. Each CEC represents a community school district and each is made up of 12 volunteer members, 10 of whom are elected by parents in the district. The remaining members are appointed by the Brooklyn Borough President and 2 high school student members. CEC 15 is a state-mandated public body responsible for ensuring that public school parents and the public have input in educational decisions that are made at the school district level. Council reviews educational policies and advocates for high-quality education that benefits all of our District 15 public elementary and middle school students. CEC 15 serves 36 elementary and middle schools and 1 high school under the oversight of our superintendent. CEC members serve in an advisory role on education matters to the district superintendent, the chancellor of the Department of Education, and to state and city elected officials. We approve district school zoning lines submitted by the Department of Education. We evaluate our district superintendent. We review the district's educational programs, and we support school leadership teams. We also submit recommendations for the School Construction Authority's annual capital plan. And as of recent amendments to the law, CECs advise in the selection of parent coordinators. We actively seek input and feedback from the public and encourage you to visit our website, cecd15.org. Take a look at our Facebook page, connect with us on X, Twitter, and write to us about any issues you may want to address or learn about. Each school has a CEC liaison, and all of our names and contact info are available on our website.
Thank you so much. Turn it over to our temporary parliamentarian, Nancy Brander. Read the public comment protocol.
Tonight's calendar meeting is in person and will include a public comment period. Take both remote and in-person comment to gather feedback from family, school, community members. You may leave your camera on or for your privacy, we prefer you may use audio during the comment period and throughout the meeting. The rules of engagement are the following. You comment on the respect the privacy of others. And please do not include names. Guests who make inappropriate comments will be removed. During the public comment period, those attending virtually may raise their hands, comment, or indicate if they would like to speak. Those public comments will be unmuted. You are attending in person and must hold and indicate whether you would like to comment. Speakers will be called on one at a time and will be allowed 1 minute. Hear as many speakers as time. It is possible that not every comment or question will be given time. So the best way to get your question answered is always to write CEC15@schools.nyc.gov. CEC members will also be given a comment period. Members will be called upon and are each permitted 1 2-minute comment or question. Members do not have a comment, they may see their time to the chair.
Okay, thank you so much, Nancy. Tonight I have to begin with some breaking news. I've never had to give breaking news at a CEC meeting. I read in the paper that 4 p.m. today that our Chancellor David C. Banks stepped down, decided to retire. As you know, there is a federal investigation into a potential bribery scheme involving Brother Terrence Banks. I have no further information, but I thought I would turn it over to our superintendent before I dive into this meeting, and give our superintendent an opportunity to answer any questions just briefly specific to this event. You can just speak from where you are, just picking you up, so. Do any of the council members have any questions?
Read, later that he said, and I don't official statement, he said he's retiring at the end of the school year. That
December 31st. Yes,
he will stay on.
until December 31st, yes. Stanley? I would imagine that he, would if there's a town hall for this district, he will continue to, no?
No, we did our town hall.
October 1st, the one I'm doing? Yeah, he won't be here for that, but I will still be conducting the town hall for the district.
Maybe this is too big of a question for right now, but with all of this that's going on, it just makes me wonder what that resignation means for us and what decisions have been made during his tenure that we need to look on with renewed scrutiny. It's just really hard to trust what's coming out of the offices right now. And I know that there have been, lots of questions about things like changes in reading curriculum. It's just really hard to think about the contracts that he's put in place during his time here, with this new shadow. I think that's maybe a topic for continued conversation.
Is that a statement or a question?
What should we be doing as a CEC? That's my question.
I can't speak to what the CEC does. That's a council perspective there. But what I can say is we're committed to the science of reading and still ensuring that our children can read. And we're going to continue the work of NYC Reads in this district, and in our middle schools, our NYC Solves. Schools are already underway. They're using the vendors that have been allocated to provide the support to teachers, and we're fully committed to continuing that work. As new leadership eventually comes into place, those leaders will make those decisions, and we will work closely with the CEC as well as the community to address any of the concerns. Yeah, I would imagine that meeting will continue. The chancellor's not going to, according to the message that came out for the press release, he's not retiring until December 31st. So everything that the chancellor is doing will continue to go forward in full force, as he's the chancellor of New York City Public Schools, and we will continue to follow those initiatives and directives. And many of those programs that you've known in previous chancellors have continued with the chancellor, and when a chancellor leaves, those programs do also continue. It'll be up to the new chancellor to make those particular decisions as we go forward. Yeah, please also note that the mayor is in charge of New York City Public Schools as well. So we were going to continue to do what we've been doing as a city. We've been leading that work across not only New York City, New York State, but also nationwide as it relates to doing a lot of the work around science of reading.
Okay. Janet Marty, you had your hand raised. Do you have a question?
I just want to say that the audio is very choppy, and I wasn't able to put that in the comments because the comment was turned off. And also to the superintendent's point that the mayor is in charge of New York City Public Schools. We can't trust the mayor either because he's also being investigated for the same exact things. So how do we put trust and faith in that our students are going to continue to get what they need, or their contracts are going to be signed with, different agencies to ensure that our students are being served?
I can only speak to my service as the superintendent of our current district, and I can assure you that the work that we're doing is in alignment to city, state, and federal guidelines as it relates to supporting students with reading and the teaching of reading. We have been committed to that work. We spent a year last year doing the work at the local level, and we're going to continue to do that work. We're seeing promise. Today, you will see when I present some of the information that's coming out of some of the schools as it relates to some of the work we've been doing and how we've been doing the work so that we get more exposure to the community around how this work lives in our schools.
And the work doesn't stop, right? Our teachers, our students still show up every day, our principals, our assistant principals. The amazing work and the strong foundation that we have all laid together continues, no matter who, right, is in the seat. So I think we all feel a sense of shock and that something big is happening, which it is. But it doesn't take away from the work that, you know, when we're talking about science of reading, there's a lot of great work happening beyond the science of reading, right, in our schools. It's the science of reading is one component, right? Also the curriculum, also project-based learning, also the social emotional learning piece, also restorative justice, also all of the professional development, our partnerships with Bank Street, with Teaching Matters. There's a lot happening, right? That is embedded in the fabric of our district, and all of that continues. That doesn't go away.
All right, I'm gonna move on with this meeting. I think, Shanice, I may have to turn on my mic on my computer,
Okay.
and you may have to mute. And here we go. Okay, so now we have the. Turn off your speaker. Turn off my speaker. Okay. Nope, we still have the same problem. And that thing's muted? Hello, hello, no, see. Hello, hello, hello.
And I'm turned all the way down. Is there a way to turn them on?
I wonder if we have to unplug it altogether. But then we don't have the audio visual. Hello? Okay. Okay, cool. All right. Okay, so welcome to the first calendar meeting of the 2024-25 school year. I hope everyone had a smooth transition back to school. September is all about fresh starts, and I consider September to be the true beginning of the school year, not January. My name is Antonia Ferraro. I'm the president of CEC 15. Many of you already know me from my prior 7 years of service to the council, and to those that I have not yet met, I am very excited to meet you and your school staff and your families in the very near future. Why is, okay. If I turn my video on, that's good. Okay. All right. I liaise currently with the schools PS 118, PS 107, PS 958, and our District 75 school K 721. I want to reintroduce all of you to our CEC members. Leslie King is not here tonight, but she is our vice president again, and she liaises with PS 2438, MS 442, and the District 75 school within that building, as well as 75K 372, or the children's school. Vanessa Gonzalez Uoka is not here with us at the moment, but she is our second vice president, and she liaises with PS 39, MS 447, and the High School of the Arts. Nancy Cruz is here. She's sitting right here next to me. Do you want to introduce yourself, Nancy?
Sure. Hi, Nancy Cruz. And, oh, I should put my, no, I don't need to put my audio on, right?
No,
Okay,
just
sorry.
because this is picking
Nancy
up.
Cruz, I liaise currently, as of today, I liaise with MS 51, MS 88, 75 KO53, PS 295, MS 443. Nice to meet you all.
And we've got Katina Rogers down here.
Hi, everyone. Katina Rogers. I'll be treasurer this year, and I'll be working with PS 15. I'm happy to be here, as well as PS 94, PS 169, and PS 516.
And Hans?
Hello, everyone. A wonderful year. Welcome back to school.
Oh, and Hans liaises with 10, 124, and 75K 373. Donalda's not with us at the moment. She liaises with 75K 371, the Little Brooklyn Pre-K Center, as well as 676 and 172. And we've got Nancy Randall down here.
Hi, I'm Nancy Randall, and I liaise with 29, 58, 456, and 896.
And Danley Vidal liaises with 75K 403, PS 321, PS 230, and PS 146. We do have a couple of vacant seats that we hope to fill later this evening, and they will be getting their liaison assignments shortly. I want to introduce our principal, Julie Kavanaugh. If you want to come up and say a few words, that would be great.
Hello everyone. Thank you for schlepping your way back to Red. Oh, am I over there?
Well, this is the mic that's currently operating.
The new normal.
I don't know.
I'll stand. It's okay. I'm going to be fast.
All right.
Hello everyone. Thank you to everybody who's in person for coming out to PS 15 again and schlepping our way through Red Hook. I used our swag to sort of like do our welcome. So that's what I'm going to use as our talking points. So I just wanted to just really center how fortunate I feel to be in this district and to lead in this district. Our work here is really about centering joy. We started our year off with a pep rally for our kids, and these are from our pep rally. So enjoy CEC and share with your children. I think, one of the wonderful things about working in this district, even when we're taking on something mammoth and coming down from Central, like the Phase 1 curriculum, whether it's HMH or Wit and Wisdom, it's always about the kids and always about integrity and that centering of joy. At our school, we really lean on the work of Dr. Goldie Muhammad to keep that center focused for us. And I deeply appreciate the support of our superintendent and his team in ensuring that her 5 pursuits are centered no matter what we do. And for us, we place a heavy focus on social and critical consciousness, which is what our water bottle represents, environmental justice, and the work that our students do, whether it's environmental justice or other elements of social justice, are key to our work here and I think are key to our schools. And then the last thing I wanted to share as part of our welcome is this year at PS 15, our sort of school-wide focus is Watch Us Grow. So all of our students got little seed kits to start the year to really center the idea that we are a super diverse school here at PS 15. We are also an extremely inclusive school. We're home to several specialized programs, and that's really at the heart of who we are, and we hope that we can expand that work outward. We really believe in community schools as beacon of this community, and that all students in a neighborhood should be able to access and be served at their local community school, and that's what we pride ourselves on doing. So a little bit about us, little welcome, enjoy your swag, and thank you for schlepping to PS 15, and thank you to Superintendent Alvarez and his team for all of support with all the things. It's going to be another kind of crazy year per the beginning conversation, but also another great one of joy and growth. So
Thank you so much, Julie. Thank you for all the swag.
I forgot one thing. I also just wanted to really thank Katina. with parent engagement and empowerment, I'm always in awe of CEC as a parent myself, taking this on as such a big role, and Katina as PS15 support. And as some people we know, we always have challenges, all schools do. We've certainly had tremendous challenges with our SCA, our School Construction Authority project, which I know will be discussed today to some extent. And I'm really big about what I call using the boss's tools, use the groups, committees, structures that are in place to do the advocacy work that needs to be done. And Katina was really involved and supportive, as was the whole CEC, and supporting us for that project, but also so much else. So thank you, and yay, parent empowerment.
Thank you so much, Julie. Okay, I was hoping our new FLC would be here to introduce herself, but we'll have to get her out to another meeting, I guess.
Should be starting October 7th.
Oh, she's not starting until October 7th. Okay. Okay. So there you have it, folks. Our new FLC, Michelle Ortiz, begins October 7th. I am putting her email address in the chat because I know a lot of PTA parents are looking to connect with her. I want to wish everybody a happy Hispanic Heritage Month. In honor of the month, I listened to the book How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accents by Dominican-American author Julia Alvarez. And yes, I said listened. As the parent of a dyslexic child, it is completely valid to listen to books. For me, the book was about the developing identities of 4 adolescent girls caught between the pressure of transition to a new culture as immigrants and the power of parental approval. And this happens to be a banned book, if you can believe it. And this happens to be Banned Books Week. Banned Books Week runs from September 22nd to the 28th, and the Brooklyn Public Library is celebrating the freedom to read with events around the city, around banned and challenged books. I'll share that link in the chat to those events. So I've brought another banned book with me, Charlotte's Web. This is one terrific book that I cannot believe is considered banned. So kids, read this banned book. What else am I listening to? I'm also listening to / reading The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. If anybody wants to understand what the conversation is about regarding cell phone restrictions, read this book. This will explain it all to you. Enjoy Banned Book Week, as I am. Last Friday evening, I attended PIST, a PIST meeting. PIST stands for Parents to Improve School Transportation. This is one of the most dedicated groups of parents in the city. I will put the link to the organization in the chat for everybody. There are about 200 people on the call, and I heard about parents waiting for over a year for reimbursements, children wetting themselves on 3-hour bus rides, parents that are unable to track their driver because the bus drivers are not being trained to collaborate with the new VIA app. The VIA app itself seems to be inoperable for many parents. There are children with routing numbers but no buses. The busing issues seem endless and compounded apparently by a driver shortage. So needless to say, PIST is doing an impressive amount of advocacy. They are educating and advocating for busing for all of their families who often have children with special needs, so that parents don't have to advocate for this alone. They are doing forums to clear up routing issues, which is something that OPT really should have organized. I am going to add some of their links to the chat. They are taking people's transportation issues on themselves. So this is a resource for you if you are struggling with busing issues. They also have filed an OCR complaint against the DOE on the grounds that the lack of appropriate busing violates the civil rights of students. And Rita Joseph is holding hearings on September 30th for busing accountability. Anybody can go and sign up to testify. And of course, PIST spoke about the inequities with the 2-trip Omni cards. We will later share a resolution on the Omni cards. Thank you so much to Vanessa for her work on that. I am going to add a link to the form that schools use to apply for the 2-trip Omni card. Your school must apply for you if you receive busing and you need a 2-trip Omni card. And I want you to see the form because I want you to read all the stipulations. So I'm going to put a link to that in the chat. So we will continue, I imagine, to receive feedback on the Omni card policy, but we recommend that families directly share feedback with the Office of Pupil Transportation. I will put contact information in the chat for that as well. And we will talk more about the Omni cards and why they are so unfair later on. I want to also share some information about the 16th annual PTA Fun Run. The Office of Councilmember Shahana Hanif and the President's Council of District 15 are hosting the Fun Run on Saturday, October 26th at the LaFrac Center in Prospect Park. There is a 9 a.m. bib pickup and the race starts at 10 a.m. I will put some links in the chat if you wish to identify a parent or a school leader as a Fun Run liaison. You should have them fill out this Google form by September 25th. And I am going to also add the registration link to the chat for the event itself. Lots of information. And 2 more bits of information. PEP meeting is tomorrow, Wednesday, September 25th at 6 p.m. at the High School of Fashion Industries. The speaker sign up is from 5:30 to 6:15 p.m. If you want to speak out about Omni cards or anything else, you can go speak out at the PEP meeting. And I want to just wish everyone a happy new year. Next week is Rosh Hashanah, and our schools are closed October 3rd and 4th. Thank you so much. I know that was a lot of information. And I will now turn it over to our Superintendent Alvarez, who I think, because of our microphone problems, you might want to come here because I will just move. I'll just move out of the way. Oh, okay, that works. Oh, okay.
Good evening, everyone. Rafael Alvarez, Superintendent for District 15. Welcome to a new school year. We had an amazing beginning of the school year. If we go to the next slide. Just want to great welcome back to our school community. We added 2 new schools in our district, middle school 428 and elementary school 546. 428 being housed in the old 516 building on 4th Avenue in Sunset Park, as well as 489 State Street, which is the elementary school. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month, myself being a Hispanic Latino who is Colombian and Puerto Rican. Hopefully you enjoy and get to hear more about our culture. Happy Labor Day for those who went through this, as well as remembrance of 9/11. On the next slide, thinking ahead, happy Rosh Hashanah to those who are celebrating their new year. Happy Italian American Heritage, Indigenous People Day, and happy Halloween for those who celebrate that. Next slide. Really thinking about the school year, and it's all about the children. And so just seeing an amazing beginning of the school year. My district team was at every single school on the first day, visiting and welcoming families and new students and students who were returning. So it was a great day. Next slide. Some other images. I'm not going to play the video at this point right now, but that was a video from 131, one of our schools that had celebrating back to school, kind of like parade, carnival type ideal. So they had a lot of events where kids were actually playing and having games and competing against each other, cotton candy, almost like a huge carnival that they had on the first day back of welcoming back to school. If we go to the next slide. Some of our schools, as you can see, are starting to begin Hispanic Heritage Month. So PS1, sharing the different cultures within the community, but also in the Hispanic and Latino heritage. PS94 doing that as well in terms of work and looking at students' work, as well as embedding it into the curricula and the work that they're doing across the thematic units. Next slide. Sunset Park Prep Middle School. Learn about why the community celebrates their Hispanic heritage. We're going to play that. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear it, so. Can you guys hear it online?
That would,
No.
Can you hear it?
no.
They can't hear it, so we're just going to go to the next slide. But please note that you all have access to the PowerPoint, and it's also in the other languages that our community speaks in. So you're welcome to view that video at your leisure. Some of the things we're going to be talking today about are really the district priorities, some of the initiatives, some data patterns and trends that we're seeing, a little bit about the illustrative math, since we all know that we're doing NYC Solves in our middle schools, and showing 2 case studies, one in elementary that's actually been exposed to it, and then also one middle school that's been doing it for a few years, and the impact analysis. An enrollment snapshot across our district, some school construction authority updates, some events and other updates that we have across the district, and then time for Q&A. Just so that you know, 2 new principals. These are the 2 schools that I spoke about before. Sibi Ip is the principal of Middle School 428, Global Innovators Academy, and Malika Johnson Willis is principal of 456, Elizabeth Jennings School for Bold Explorers. You see where the numbers are at Middle School 428 and PS 456. You can click on those and get further information about those particular schools in our district. Please note that obviously the middle school goes through a lottery-based process for middle school, and Malika's school on PS 456 is actually a borough-wide school. So it's district priority first, and then other students within the borough who have access to that school, and it's in the heart of downtown Brooklyn, across the street from where a lot of you know the Flatbush Avenue Apple Store. Next slide. Congratulations to new IA principals who are in the process of their C30 process. Catherine Fitzgerald, who took over as the interim acting principal of PS 154. Layla Rashid, as I shared before, has joined the district team as the math dais. And Jean Marie McInerney, who was assistant principal at PS 94, who joined as the interacting principal for PS 295. I was just at their SLT earlier today. They're doing well. Congratulations to Jean Marie and the work that she's been doing at that school. Next slide. Newest members of the team, we have Michelle Ortiz, who, as I shared earlier, will be joining us on October 7th. Officially on our team. She will be leaving PS1 and joining the team and helping to lead our parent coordinators across the district. And then we have someone who's kind of camera shy, but we have Cheryl Stevens, who is our new administrative assistant, as Kim Lawrence has moved on to a position closer to home, but also closer to her young baby, who's now 4 years old, which is a great thing for her. And also a great thing for us, as we have an administrative assistant who has business manager experience, who's going to be helping with a lot of other areas that we could support our schools with in our district. So we're happy to see her. She started on Monday, yesterday. Next slide. This is just for the community to be aware. These are all the email addresses of all the people on our current team. You have the email addresses. You can click on the District 15 team link and have access to all of our emails and be able to email any one of us about any particular issues or topics aligned to whoever that particular person is listed there. You'll also find that information on our district's website, which I'll talk about later. Next slide. So district priorities aligned to the DCEP. Just before I continue, I want you to be aware that, you can go to the next slide, that's okay, thank you. But before I continue with this, I want you to be aware that we provided you with our district DCEP priorities. There are 6 of them. You're gonna see that in your PowerPoints in hand. The way that the goals work is that the goals are aligned to, you should see it in your PowerPoint. And it is on the link PowerPoint as well, if you want to just pass them around. The goals are there and they're aligned to specific groups that we have to look at. I like to call it student groups. And so you might see an ELA priority that's focused on Black students, or an L priority, a math priority that might be focused on L students. You're going to see that in there. I didn't want to go through the whole thing. I wanted to give you really the gist of what our district priorities are anyway. And you should be able to find it in there. If not, it is on the PowerPoint linked, and it is also translated as well. But here we're really focusing on marginalized groups of students. Our ENL achievement, because in Brooklyn North, we have the largest number of Ls. We're still continuing our work around DataWise and MTSS, studying the whole child, but also using the DataWise process to understand where the needs are based on data and making data-informed decisions. The curriculum rollout for Wit and Wisdom, HMH, and IM Algebra 1 for grades 6 through 12. Continuing the work with foundational literacy, because Read NYC is not just about the curriculum, it's also inclusive of Hegarty, which is the phonemic awareness work, or Foundations, PAF, which is all the phonics work. So that's inclusive of that work. Project-based learning, because we are a PBL district and we continue to expand that work even with the different curricula. We're still engaging in the project-based learning and going deeper every year. We still have our district-wide committee that meets and has professional learning around these particular areas, and we've been more focused on working with other partners to bring in more of this work in our district. Differentiated database small group instruction. That's at the core and the heart of everything we do to ensure that we're addressing the gaps that students are facing and trying to close those achievement gaps. This year, we're going to start looking more intentionally at the ICT teaching models. There are 6 of them. A lot of schools use the one teach, one drift or parallel teaching, but there are more than just 2 models of ICT teaching, so we're going to be exploring more of that work even further. We're focusing heavily on professional development and intra-visitations. So this year, different than in previous years, not only are teachers going to be visiting other schools and other classrooms across the district, but we're now putting all of our principal meetings are happening in other schools throughout the district, where school leaders are starting off at different school sites, aligned to our DCEP priorities, but also to the curriculum rollout as well. So there's a mixture of the 2, in which school leaders are going to be visiting classrooms and looking at best practices and how to bring those best practices to their schools to support the work forward. And we've created an extensive professional development plan that encompasses everyone in the school community, from paraprofessionals to cluster teachers like the art teacher, the phys ed teacher, classroom teachers, special ed teachers, ENL teachers, school aides. There's so much that was developed. Do we say that?
Or like October, our theme.
Yeah, so for example, a principals conference that we're doing in October is around student voice, choice, and agency. That's a lot of work that we've been working around in terms of hearing students' voices and hearing them speaking in their classroom and in their environments and taking the lead. So we're visiting 3 different schools in our district around the different curricula. So an HMH school, a Wit and Wisdom school, and an IM school, where kids are we're going to be able to see how kids are engaging in the curricula that they're engaged in, but from the student's perspective. And school leaders are going to learn from the student's perspective how it is to lead in this work. So for example, if they go to an IM school, not that this is IM curricula, but how are the kids involved in leading that IM math work in terms of the reasoning and the conceptual understanding of the mathematics and leading that work in the classroom, and seeing how students are engaged with each other. That's allowing the teachers to get exposure and allowing principals to get exposure about what's going on in the classroom. And then to go even further, we're working with the principals to kind of, with our TDEC, which is our teacher development coach, to support them in providing feedback to the particular teachers that they saw, not as a punitive, but to help develop their skill in giving high leverage feedback to teachers that will ultimately impact their practice in their classroom, which is supposed to move student outcomes based on the teacher's practice. And so that's kind of the new work that we've been doing that's been engaged through all members of the community informing us. So we came up with one plan and it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper until all thoughts come in and input is provided and we make some adjustments. Building a capacity across all of our stakeholder groups. We have our Adult Equity Congress, our Youth Equity Congress is going to be leading a lot of work, the partnerships that we've been having across the district, and really trying to find ways to close the achievement gap with our chronic absenteeism, because we know that as more kids are coming to school and less absent, the better opportunities we have to help support them in their particular work. What I didn't mention here, and I'm going to mention now, is that the DOE has provided us with intervention specialists, and PS15 is one of those schools that actually has one of those intervention specialists that provides not only direct support to students who are struggling the most in her school, because they are thoroughly trained in Tier 3 support, but we've also charged those interventionalists with training the teachers across grades to build their capacity to support students in the classroom. Over time, the hope is that we're working towards reducing the number of kids that are placed into special ed and thinking about how do we support before they even get to that route. And so we're excited about that work. Next slide. And so just a little bit about the 2024 state assessment snapshot for District 15. If we go to the next slide. In the ELA exams for grades 3 through 8, district proficiency rate is at 60.1%. The cities is at 49.1%. We had a drop of 4.2% since last year. The city dropped itself as 2.6%. Please note that this is the first year we tested more students than we've ever tested before. We tested on average about 2,000 more students than we would have normally tested over the past 3 to 5 years. And that's our advocacy to share with families that this information helps us change the types of directions we go in terms of practices. So examples of some of the things I just discussed before, this information has helped us create the direction we're going to support schools in implementing these practices to support students. Our smallest relative drop, students with IEPs. They only dropped by 1% proficiency, and that goes to the work around marginalized students. So at different schools were working with marginalized groups, and students with IEPs in some cases were the marginalized groups in some schools, and a lot of schools have been working on that, and that to me is a testament to why it was only a 1% proficiency drop compared to other places across the city. However, grade 7 had the biggest increase by a 4.5% in proficiency. Where we saw a huge dip, grade 8 had the biggest decrease by 10.6%. This mirrored the citywide trends of 3.5% increases and 6.4% decreases, respectively. And on the next slide, these the math. District proficiency, notice that in the ELA we said 3 through 8, but in math we say 3 through 7, and I'll explain why. In terms of district proficiency, we are at 65.9%. City's average is 53.4%. We went up by 0.9% since last year. Citywide went up by 3.5%. The biggest gain for us was the economically disadvantaged student group, which was up by 2.3%. Grade 7 again had the consistency of the biggest increase of 4.8. We're using that information to see what was going on in grade 7 and how can we mirror some of those practices to support some of the other grades that struggled. Grade 5, for example, had the biggest decrease of 0.5%. This mirrored citywide trends of a 6.2% increase and a 1.9% increase respectively. What does that mean? On the next slide, why do we see some dips? There's a new testing format. So for all grades 5 and 8, students are required more exposure to computer-based testing platforms. So we've recognized as an administrative team, in terms of my principals and assistant principals, of thinking about how are we practicing not only their unit assessments and things that they're doing in their classrooms, so they're practicing this skill set of using computer-based assessments and using that as a way to practice testing so that they're more familiarized when they take standardized assessments, right? In 8th grade, participation is very low. Why? Because we have accelerated ELA Regents test takers who opt out at a higher rate. And then accelerated algebra Regents test takers are not required to take the state exam if they're taking the algebra. Only 55 students in our district took the 8th grade math exam. Why? because the majority of the rest of the students took the algebra regions. We had 1,438 students take the algebra regions and 69.5% pass rate. That's a pretty significant pass rate for an algebra assessment that's really not given until students are in the 9th grade. And we're trying to prepare our students for what they're expected to do in high school. And then there was an implementation dip. Everyone knows that whenever you're trying something new, there's a dip because people are learning at the same time they're trying to teach it. And so we were working on piloting the new curricula so that we were exposed to it early on, so that in year 1 that we're doing the curricular rollout, it almost felt like year 1.5, if that makes any sense. So we have been working a lot behind the scenes, not like a phase 1 district, but like a phase 2 district, and being able to prepare in doing this work even before the curricula was provided. And so that's a testament to that work. I was just talking to Principal Kavanaugh today, who has already had her Teaching Matters coach at her school. She loves the coach. The coach is helping the teachers do the work with integrity and aspects of the curricula with fidelity. And so we're excited about that work. Next slide. Illustrative math implementation and impact. I'm going to talk to you today about 2 cases, 2 schools that have been using IM for multiple years. That's illustrative math for those of you who don't know. PS 39, which is an elementary school that moved towards that a while ago, and middle school 88. And the illustrative math implementation support for grades 6 to 12. In terms of the next slide. So here you're looking at the results. In 2021 to 2022, the school was exploring and piloting IM. They were doing little aspects of it and getting themselves down and dirty and a little rustic with that. Please note that 21-22 school year was also a year where we were just still interrupted by COVID, right? 22-23 year was the full year that they fully implemented that curricula. In 23-24 was the second year they fully implemented the curricula. 91% of their students are on grades levels 3 and 4. Administrative involvement, professional learning, followed by scope and sequence that was created. Professional learning focused on understanding the problem-based curricula. They worked with job-embedded support, which is essentially what they're getting now at the middle school level across our district. And please note that the IM work is being done in partnership with Bank Street. So I'm happy to announce that even on our team, as Central has sent team members to district teams, we went from having 1 math person to now having 3 math people to support our district. So we have Layla Rashid, who was a principal of 154, who is a Bank Street specialist in mathematics, who has joined our team. She's actually in the chat, or not in the chat, in the virtual space. She's joined our team as a principal with experience, but a principal who has a huge math background from Bank Street. We're using Bank Street as our support in terms of the IM rollout. We have Jessie Donat, Startup Donat, who's also been working with our team. She's been strong in mathematics in 6 through 12. And then, and Layla's K to 5. And then we have Alicia McDonough, who's a math implementation specialist, who's also supporting schools. And you're gonna see on the next slide, where she's, well, let me finish this slide. I'm just gonna you can go on the next slide. I just wanna let that sit for a second for people to look at on the next slide. And that's the information from 2019 to 2024 for this particular school, if you look at the level of 3s and 4s. That doesn't include the level 1s that move to level 2s and level 2s that move to level 3s. You will see some of it, but you're not going to see the full amount of that. But I'd be happy to go into more details if necessary at a later time if I have the specific questions to this data. But they've been moving. And what's impressive is that they've also been moving with the targeted marginalized students that we've been working with the schools to work on. Those Black students and Hispanic students. By no means am I saying we've closed the gap. There's still a 20% gap between Hispanic and Black students versus white and Asian students. But what we can say is we're starting to close that gap. And that's what we're proud of the work that we're doing with that particular school. So if we go to the next slide. This is an example of middle school 88. The red line is the citywide trends around mathematics. The blue line is the trend for middle school 88. So middle school 88 started in 2019 and 2020, which is when the pandemic interrupted. You could see that dip in the middle of between 2018 and 2020 where they went down. That's usually that implementation dip. But if you look at that line going up consistently all the way to 2024, That's because of the work that they've been doing using IM. As a matter of fact, the math implementation specialist that we have is an actual staff member that we hired from that particular school to help lead that work across the district, as I've been, not only myself, but my team has been impressed in the work that she's been doing with her class as a teacher, but also the work that she's been doing. Her name is Alicia McDonough. I want to make sure that everyone knows that. Next slide. These are the numbers that you're seeing for middle school 88. Are the numbers where they all need to be? No, we need to do a lot of work. We have a lot of work to do, but you could see the movement. And I just want to share with you from 2020, if you look at the yellow in 2024, that's the difference, the increase for 2 years from 2022 to 2024. I'm more interested in that number because in 2023, it seems like there was a high jump for everybody across the state. And then there was somewhat of a little bit of a dip in this particular last school year. But so then I compare 2022 to 2024. And when I look at those numbers, those students are making increases is what we're seeing. And that's, again, finding ways to close the achievement gap for your multiracial, for your EverLs, for your Asian students, for your Black and Hispanic students, and seeing the significant changes over time. And I just want you guys to be aware of that in terms of the changes we started to make. And that's because, again, we're going back to addressing all students, but holding schools accountable for giving that extra equitable support to the most marginalized students in schools. Next slide. And so just as 88, because I shared with you that not a lot of students took the math state assessment. At MS 88, 68.4% passing rate for the algebra regents. Out of that percentage, 39% students with disabilities are passing rate, and L's 32% passing rate. Compared to the other rates, they're doing very well. This is what I consider a middle school that's a hidden gem. This is a school that on the surface, when you look at their proficiency compared to other schools across the district, may not seem like they may be making the biggest grade or may not be the highest performing. But they are certainly one of the highest performing schools in moving students based on growth. They're making the most growth with where students are starting. And we attribute that work not only to the social and emotional wellness that school provides in that community, but we attribute that to that school's ability to move that IM work and really gain the hands-on experiences that kids need in terms of conceptual understanding and building on that. I personally have met with their student council, and their student council helps push the teachers' practice as well. So kudos to Middle School 88. Next slide. So these are all the schools in our district that are middle schools in our district, and what year they would be in terms of implementation of IM as it relates to their schools. So you could see that we have about 4 schools that have already been doing this work for a little while. All the other schools will be in its first year of implementation, but really not their first year, because last year a lot of the schools were piloting this work. This would just be their official first year of starting it as a full curriculum. All schools have been engaged, and Bank Street has already been visiting these schools already. Please note that the professional development that they're receiving comes with funding that covers the teachers to be able to actually get the actual training that's being provided. And that's something we've never had before as a system. That's exciting that the schools are not fully responsible for that. That central office is being responsible for all of that funding for teachers to be fully trained in the new curricula that is being exposed. Next slide. And that's really what this is about. What does IM implementation look like for grades 6 to 12? Well, the professional learning includes remote workshops and series, in-person series and communities of practice, job-embedded support from Bank Street, which they've already started with math coaches, 8 days of professional learning per grade, and 8 to 12 coaching days for teachers and administrators directly from Bank Street. That's separate also from some of the PD sessions that we've been doing as a district, and my math team members here who've been implementing and providing support in their school visits as well. Next slide. So some district updates. Financial literacy, I talked about financial literacy being part of the curricula going forward. So this is one of our priority 6 goals of ensuring college and career readiness, that financial literacy expectations. So we started small because a lot's going on. We started with K to 3 first. If you click on that curricula is already designed, expected. Teachers don't have to do anything but follow those particular lessons. Schools have been asked to have teachers work on providing that financial literacy curricula to students in K to 3. Next year, we'll move that up. but we wanted to start off with these particular grades to support that work. We're expecting to cover a minimum of 75% of lessons across September through June, and we'll be monitoring that as far as one of our DCEP goals. Some of the lessons come directly from Passport to Social Studies that support this particular work. Next slide. CEC, District 15 school construction projects. There have been concerns that have been raised across our district on multiple projects across the district. I'm not going to speak to every single one of them. What I can say is that yesterday I met with Julie, and what her concerns were with Gordon Tung, who's one of the VPs for School Construction Authority. We've been getting clear through some of those issues with those particular projects, particularly here. And we have a standing meeting that she's having on Mondays, every other Monday, to follow up on the scope of the project. I'm actually going to be monitoring that punch list as well. We have in Sunset Park, I see Councilmember Avila is in the audience. We have Sunset Park 516, or what's called Building K 557. There's a punch list that's going on there that we're actually working on with the School Construction Authority, where we're going to be monitoring those particular punch lists. There are punch lists for K347, which is 321's President Street site, their annex building, where there's a punch list. As a matter of fact, today I just got a response by Mr. Gordon, by Mr. Tung today, where all of those issues are being resolved as we speak. And there are some other projects that are going on in terms of School Construction Authority that we're going to be monitoring. On October 17th, I will be doing a thorough walk with the Vice President, Gordon Tung, across the many schools that have projects working on it, because I myself want to see and hear from not only the principal, but also the project managers of these particular scopes to see what's going on and where is the progress of the work. I can certainly tell you that's not. I'm monitoring because it's my schools that are having the concern. It's not my scope, but because they are my schools and my students are my scope and the schools house my students, it becomes my responsibility. So I'm taking this on as the responsibility of holding SCA accountable for the work. And I want to thank publicly Gordon Tung, and I know that Julie Kavanaugh could agree with me, the principal of this school, that he has been a very great partner in ensuring that all the concerns that we're having across our schools are not only being addressed, but are being met. And I can say that he has fully been cooperating and following up and following through on the projects that he has going on across this district. I can certainly say that punch list items sometimes happen for multiple reasons. And what we're working on is ensuring that by the October meeting, I can give you further updates on the particular projects we're discussing. And at that meeting, I've invited him to, while I know SCA has been invited by CEC for the November meeting, I've invited him to come with me as a thought partner to speak to the CEC as part of my report around the particular School Construction Authority work that's been happening across this district. So you will be seeing him twice, in November and in partnership with me, and giving a report on the schools that we visit on October 17th. I welcome CEC members. I'll give you the date and time. I welcome you to do those walks with me if you choose, based on the schools that you support, or if you just want to be a part of that particular walkthrough to see what that's like as well. That's my commitment to the community as a result of these concerns. Next slide. Oh yeah, just go back. I'm sorry, one more slide. When you click on the current District 15 SCA projects, on that list, you'll be able to see the schools that have projects that are in the design phase. And you will see projects that are currently in its form of construction across our district. This doesn't just include the schools that are under my purview as the District 15 superintendent. It includes anything that's in District 15. So Janet Ross's schools of Brooklyn North High Schools, Alan Chang schools, Transfer High Schools by John Sullivan, Glenda Esperance for District 79, or Fred Walsh or Noah Angels for New Visions or consortium schools. All those projects will be there, and you'll have access to those, so you can click on that link. And please note that the PowerPoints are going to be on the CEC's website as always in the translated languages. They're placed in the chat, and we have some copies here. Next slide. Events, dates, and resources. So next slide. Applying to middle school. Below are the key dates. Wednesday, October 9th, middle school application opens. Friday, December 13th, middle school application closes. Wednesday, April 9th, middle school offers are released. There are going to be some caveats that I'm going to get into here. I know Janet Marte had a question last time for me in an email. I'm going to answer that when we get to the middle school virtual fair flyer, and I'll talk about that shortly. But next slide. Our high school admissions process. Tuesday, October 1st is the high school application, LaGuardia application, and specialized high school admissions test, the Shazat registration opens. Friday, October 18th, Shazat registration closes. October 30th is the school day testing for the Shazat. December 4th, high school and LaGuardia applications closes. And then March 6th is the high school offers released. Enrollment by grade, you're able to click on that and see what that looks like across our district, because I know that was a question that was asked at the last CEC. We made sure that it's on there for you to be able to access. Next slide. Our district event, again, anyone who has the PowerPoint, you can click on any of those blue or teal colored and get a flyer on there. It's also on our district website, and it will be updated periodically. A new date change for the STEM Exploration Day. We moved it to May 10th, and we've included grades 4 through 12 in this particular aspect. We had to change the date because there was a conflict with the high school that we're using, which is the Harbor High School. They had a major event that they had already scheduled, and there was a conflict with the date, so we just changed the date. We're excited about our Urban Debate League and excited about the Learning Together Field Day that we're working on getting the permits for Prospect Park. I want to thank Councilmember Aviles' Chief of Staff, who's worked with us to ensure we do the proper paperwork to get the Prospect Park permit, because there's a whole process that we were not fully aware of, and that support has helped us get that permit for free as opposed to having to pay for it, because we are a public school system. So thank you, Councilmember Aviles and your team. Next slide. Family workshops. We have 4 family workshops, and I'm going to tell you where this came from, but we have the NYC Reads, the curriculum rollout aspect of the work being presented to families on the 15th. Translations are available, so there will be the translations available at these particular meetings. The special ed process on December 10th, bullying prevention on February 11th, and then early grade math workshops on the 8th. You please feel free to email Brenda Diaz, who's our family support coordinator, for more details around that. Parent coordinators have already been sharing this district-wide. Next slide. Superintendent town halls. This came back. Parents asked overwhelmingly for it. I worked with thinking about making sure that I followed that the CEC wanted to make sure that there was equity in terms of where information is being disseminated. And so we only selected 4 dates this year instead of having it every month. And what we did was we surveyed our community. We sent a survey out to the entire community using our Gamma system, which is a messaging system. And we wanted to increase access and communication to me, as well as my leadership team, and to address needs and provide learning opportunities for the community. And so we selected 4 dates. Here are the dates. And just so that you know, the survey's on the side, the percentage of what parents and families wanted to hear more about. Certainly as time moves, there will probably be new requests or new wants. We will collect that information as we're at those town halls, and then if necessary, send out further surveys to ask more. Certainly if CEC wants to work in partnership and collect also information from the community of what else they want to hear, we're welcome to add those to our agendas, but we have those listed. Next slide. So our first town hall is October 1st. It's around new K-5 ELA and 6 to 8 math curricula. Tuesday, October 1st, the town hall meeting link is on this. We've also sent it out as a blast. It's also on our district website. We've shared it with CEC, and so everyone should have access to this, including our parents in our district. Next slide. Family workshop for NYC Reads. If you want to go even further in detail, here's our meeting slide that also has a QR code for being able to access the meeting and be able to come to the meeting to get support in this particular area. Next slide. That's okay. You clicked on the thing, so you just go back. Yeah, it's okay. But now you see it works, so that works. All right. So our District 15, go back one more. Our District 15 middle school virtual fair is October 30th from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. There was a concern that enrollment office decides when they do a middle school fair across a district, and they've often chosen Middle School 88, which seems to be central at the end of the Park Slope area, but there's been concerns about other parts of the district. I cannot speak to how enrollment's deciding on where location, but we do know that a lot of it has to do with accessibility. But what I can say is that based on what was shared by some community members, Deirdre Keys, my EDSO on the team, is working with the school leaders of having a fair for their own individual schools so that parents can actually have access to go to the school and visit the schools separate from the virtual fair. So the hope is that in the virtual fair, you get to know about the school, and those that pique your interest will give you the opportunity to go to that school with dates that will follow later, where you can actually go visit the school and see the school itself. And so that's the way we're working this, so that it gives access to all of our schools to be visited and exposed to across our district. More details to come for that. Next slide. Our new website, love it, love it, love it. If you haven't checked it out, please check it out. There is language access for 180 languages on the top right corner of the website. You'll be able to click whatever language you speak. There's a monthly newsletter that goes out. These newsletters will probably come out on Gamma going forward, or a messaging system where you'll have a link to be able to see that newsletter, which will have a welcome letter or a message from somebody on our team or something that's going on with important dates and specific news event. I know that OmniCard has been a big thing, and so when the community is bringing things up to us, what we've been doing is on the website at the bottom of the page, there's areas for resources, and we create the links for you to directly get the information so that you don't have to navigate through the system to try to figure out where the information is. So for example, if you were to click on the website today, you scroll on the bottom, when you scroll over, it'll say OmniCard. You can click on that and it'll give you everything that has to do with OmniCard and what the DOE's current policies are. There's also another tab on there that talks about for parents in terms of what the community wants. Parents can click on that, and everything that we thought of that the community needs to know about that are for parents, including Parents' Bill of Rights and everything else that parents need access to in the DOE, is linked there. If you find something that you think could benefit the site, or you feel something can be added to support the community, we're limited at what can be done on a site, but if there's something that we can add or place, please let us know. We take that feedback. We have an entire team who's dedicated to ensuring that the site is consistently up to date and not with old information. So as we speak, there have been changes already being made as I review the site and look at things, and we're making changes. As people email us about things, you may have all noticed my picture changed. Interesting enough, my picture seemed to have been pixelated, a little chubby in my face, but pixelated, and we changed the picture. And so there's a new picture of me on there that's not pixelated and a little bit more thinning for me. And so that's all to say that whenever you bring something up, we're going to respond. And I want you to know that that happened to be a parent who is a District 15 parent who emailed me and said, hey, you need to do something about your picture. And I did it, right? So like, we are listening, we are taking feedback, and we are making changes. Hey, whatever's going to have the parent keep coming to our website and seeing what we're offering is what I'm going to do. So with that being said, next slide. That was a lot. Q&A?
Yes, let's, Nancy, you want to?
Yeah, okay. Sorry.
I mean Nancy Randall.
Okay, great.
Is there anybody on anyone on the management interpretation line with questions? Anyone on the Spanish interpretation line with questions?
There's no question in the Mandarin.
Anyone in Zoom who would like to either drop a question in the chat or raise your hand and ask a question?
No question in the Spanish language.
Anyone in the room?
I have a question about construction authorities, and as far as I know, the construction have been changed. And can I know the new constructor's name?
The vice president that I've been working with is Gordon Tung, Tung.
That's the
From SCA, Vice President.
And the new constructors, the new constructor companies.
The new one working here?
Yeah, the project director.
Who's the vendor? Yeah.
The vendor for 15, I don't have that in front of me. Who is the vendor that's working, the new construction company? I think it's McLeod?
It's called the McLeod Group.
The McLeod Group.
Can you spell it for me?
McLeod, McCloud Group?
Group,
Group,
G-R-O-U-P.
G-R-O-U-P. R-O-U-P.
Any difference after new constructor come here? Like any advice about the construction?
I can defer your questions to the principal who works directly with the actual school construction authority as it relates to the project that's happening at her school. I think you might want to schedule yourself some time to do that. I can answer vague questions around school construction authority and what's happening across the district in terms of the schools, but in terms of the specific nuances of what's going on a day-to-day basis, that would be the principal that usually deals with those nuances on a day-to-day basis.
Any other questions in the room?
Just a quick question. In terms of the IM implementation, are these schools that are self-selected, or like how are the schools chosen for IM implementation curriculum?
Yeah, so some of the elementary schools they've always self-selected. So right now, elementary schools are not being asked to select, every elementary school has to have a curricula. So some elementary schools, for example, 321 is doing Eureka Square, right? 39 is doing IM. Those are selected by the elementary schools. In terms of middle schools, the middle schools came together, and we have come from the beginning of the year when we were thinking about curriculum rollout for our elementary schools. We started thinking about what work can we be doing with our middle schools, since a lot of middle schools that have been showing progress and promise using it over the past couple of years started to learn from one another, and that came from principals conferences and assistant principal conferences. And so they made a informed decision together collaboratively to say, we're going to do this as an entire district. And so all of our middle schools, as well as our 2 high schools, our 6 to 12 secondary and our 9 to 12, are all in alignment with IM work around Algebra 1.
The only citywide mandate under New York City solves middle schools right now.
High schools. High schools. High schools. The only city mandate for New York City solves is high schools.
Well, middle schools for
For
us.
us as middle schools, yes.
So we're doing New York City solves and our middle school mandated. And since we have the 2 high schools, 6.
Yeah.
But the elementary schools themselves into IM over the last couple of years. So that's why we used a case study of the elementary school and the middle school. And that's why you're not seeing all the elementary schools, because not all of them have implemented. And that hasn't been a citywide mandate.
Or an expectation for me.
Before we turn to CEC questions, we have one question in the chat. In recent news, there was an article around the Gowanus Canal air quality and the impact on students at the children's school. Has there been any updates that could be shared?
Yeah, I don't have any updates other than I know that the Department of Health has been working on getting responses to the community. I know there's been letters that have been provided directly from the Department of Health, not necessarily directly from the Department of Ed. I know that at one point when the Department of Ed was asked, we did air quality testing, which is what we would do in particular buildings. But this is being led by the Department of Health, and those questions can be referred to their division to be able to provide the answers for those particular things as it relates to that, the area and what's happening with the canal.
I'll now turn it over to CEC. Antonia, do you have any questions?
Sure. Thank you so much. That was a very comprehensive, I recommend that everybody, when we put this up on the website, there's a lot here. Go to it, click on all the links. There's a lot to dig into. I want to second the fact that MS-88 is a hidden gem. My son went there, and he is now on the dean's list at Rensselaer Polytechnic doing a double major in math and computer science. So they gave my son an excellent, excellent foundation at MS88.
Thank you.
And I just want to go back to that slide in which you point out that 8th grade drop.
Yes.
It's page 21. So this is English language. 8th grade had the biggest decrease.
Yeah.
And it mirrored citywide trends. And I'm just wondering, you know, I have an 8th grader and she was in 3rd and 4th grade in 2020 and 2021 when the pandemic hit. Is this 8th grade a cohort to follow for impacts? Because 3rd and 4th grade are critical.
Yeah, it could be. I just can't be definitive as to what was the reason behind it. That certainly is a speculation that that's part of the reason behind it. And anybody who is of right sound in mind would also say that that contributed to it. But is that the only contributing factor? I don't know. What we are trying to do is look at what are some of the things that we're doing or what are some of the things we have to do differently to support mitigating those factors. And that's kind of the work that we use these assessments for. So from my perspective as a district superintendent, I use this information to help me figure out how do we help leverage the change in practice, or how do we need to change practice, or what practices we need to implement as a result of not meeting the mark of what the state says this is the standard, right? And so that's how we use this information. That's why you see me present the information very differently than other people present the information, because from my perspective, this is supposed to be informative to help change practice. And so that's how we use this information. To your point, yeah, it could be part of that. There could be other extenuating circumstances and factors that impact this, right? This is middle school. Where did the students come from elementary? What curricula were they using? How many students have transferred? We have a large number of migrant students in our district. Which number of them had to take the standardized assessment? Which ones didn't, right? Based on, right? And what the opt-out rate is, what's not the opt-out rate. We increased the number of students who assessed this year compared to previous years. Did that play a factor? Those are all things that we're looking into to try to determine what caused that. What we are cognizant of is that this is not only statewide, it was also citywide for us. And so when we see that, we at least feel we're not way off from where everyone else is, because you always try to measure where other people are as well. Certainly we try to measure where other people are as it relates to where our numbers are, because, you know, the lower your percentage, it's a little slightly easier to gain percentage if you're doing the work than when you're really high already. It's sometimes it's harder to go up further when you're already so high. But one would argue 60% is not high. That means 40% of our kids are still struggling to read, right? And that's a problem. And so my job is to look at this work as a collective team with my team and think about what can we do differently to support schools in implementing better practices. And again, one of those things that we did was making all principals and assistant principals do intervisitations amongst each other. So we're seeing teachers' practices across all of our schools aligned to our DCP, and then providing ample feedback to the teachers that are coming from, you have 10 visitors, you're going to be able to get 10 pieces of feedback that help move and leverage your practice in moving, that are aligned to the same feedback, right? And so we're using our TDEC in a more creative way to provide support directly to teachers without it being evaluative. And that's the key component of removing that evaluative piece, so that they don't feel intimidated by the fact that they had all these administrators giving them feedback. It's more about moving practice. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Can we come back to me? I'm just.
Nancy, please.
So you covered a couple of things. I have a question on two different areas. I'll do the straightforward one first. About the school construction situation and given all that's been going on. I have a question about the previous contractor. What's the status of the money that's been collected so far?
I don't work for School Construction Authority, so I don't get the information as to what happens with the funding that's coming from School Construction Authority. I think there's a misconception of how School Construction Authority works. Please understand that it's a separate entity from the Department of Education. They are not a part of the Department of Education. They work in partnership with the Department of Education. Another example of this is like the school safety agents, where everyone sees them in schools and it says school safety agent. They think that the Department of Ed runs the school safety agents. We don't. It's a NYPD. So the same thing with School Construction Authority. School Construction Authority runs the contracts. So their agency, they're like an agency, like a New York City agency called School Construction Authority. Right. So they are run by a separate entity that works with building schools for New York City, right? So that's a separate entity. And so their supervisory and everything else that goes like that when it comes to budgeting is through their offices. That doesn't even come to our office or through us. So when they're funded for projects, it's funded through capital dollars. Those capital dollars create the budgets for what's supposed to be happening at the particular schools. School Construction Authority runs all of that. What we're responsible for is the scope. So, and not really the scope. Really what happens is the agency comes to a school about a particular project that's going on, letting them know, for example, we're gonna replace the roof, we're gonna do the parapets, we're gonna do these things. There's a design and scope that comes from School Construction Authority. The project manager works with the principal to let them know what the scope is, and then School Construction Authority through another agency, and I don't remember the name of the agency, works together to make sure that they're abiding by all the rules that we're governed by as a city in terms of buildings when it comes to schools and the safety of the buildings. That goes to School Construction Authority. And they meet with the principal to really update them they're supposed to be updating them every 2 weeks to let them know where the scope of the project is for a full project. So School Construction Authority has full authority of that. Where I'm coming into play with this is as the superintendent, because there's been so many concerns around some of the projects that have been going on. I've been involved in partnership with School Construction Authority about identifying where are the gaps, why are these gaps existing, and how are you fixing these gaps that are happening? Correct.
So I'm still trying to follow the money here.
Mhm.
So basically, School Construction Authority is working with the school. The money that they are getting is not coming from the mayor's DOE budget. Like when the mayor, when we are told,
Yeah.
this is the total DOE budget. When SCA is doing work, is that money coming from that DOE budget?
I don't want to speak incorrectly or be misquoted, as I know that there's articles being written about this. So what I'm going to defer is to School Construction Authority to answer that question. I'm going to be bringing Gordon
Who's going
Tung
to be here?
next
So we
month.
can
Yes,
address this
someone
at the
from
next
School
meeting.
Construction Authority will be here next
Fair
month to address it with me, but they will also be here in November to address it even further. Your
So
particular
they'll be
question.
here to answer that specific questions. But I really want to follow money. I
Yeah.
wanna-
Rightfully so.
If there's accountability, like that's really important, because these are schools that are kind of being pushed around a bit, and these are very important projects that affect our children quite a bit. So thank you. I really
Yeah, yeah.
appreciate that you'll bring them, and I look forward to speaking, and I appreciate him coming.
Yep.
Second question, and I'll try to. Oh, sorry, well, he covered like many different topics. So just very quickly, do you have the regent's status over time?
Regions over the course of years,
Yeah,
you want to
math,
see, you want to see
math. I
math?
just want to see last 3 years. And passing is what?
That depends, right? So when you're thinking about it, obviously 65 is a passing grade, right? What?
And that's what you're talking about here.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So
But
it's not-
when you're thinking about college career readiness, when students are going into college, the expectation of a college is that a student gets an 85 or higher.
That's correct. That's, yeah, so you're going with the 65 number when you're talking.
With the passing rate, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So just if I could see.
Last Regents
just like the
math last 3 to 5
I
years.
think going back too long is really nonsensical because we had COVID.
Algebra,
You're asking for ADA specifically?
no, all.
like the schools in District 15, especially 88, I want to see, because you're giving us this case study, yeah. Of course. There's a lot that questions I have on this 88 numbers, but I'm out of time.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I won't be
I'll
able
get that
to.
for you.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. I
I'll
want to say thank you for the attention you're giving to, and that your office is giving to the SCA question. I know that I've been one of the people raising concerns about it, and I really appreciate that getting some time and attention with all of us here, and it'll continue over the next couple months. That connects to the question that I asked earlier about the, competence, the senior levels of oversight in the city. I know it's out of your district's, district office purview, but it's hard for us to know then what to do.
Yeah, so when it comes to school construction authority, there is oversight. There is a president for the school construction authority, and they have their own division and their own people that deal with that. As I stated before, school construction authority is not New York City Department of Education. It's a separate entity. So that's the one aspect as it relates to the oversight from the changes that you're here, that were announced today, right? Or that will be announced that are announced today for the end of December. As it relates to the constant operation, I want you all to realize there are a lot of people who work at these different agencies. Just like in any public forum, when you have Secretary of Education, you have a mayor, you have a governor, you have different people that are the head of the organizations, but there are also other people working in your organization. I can assure you that there are accountability measures, as we're not just accountable, or those people are not just accountable themselves, but we're also accountable to city council and many other members of the community that we're responsible to share how funding is being used. So I can assure you that there are other departments within the agencies that we're talking about that actually do this work.
And another question that I wanted to ask, mostly I just wanted to say thanks for that, but I wanted to ask about class sizes and how the reduction in class size is going district-wide. I know at our particular school, we're seeing really wide variance in class sizes, and I'm wondering how it's going.
Across the district, we're at 42% right now as we speak. We're supposed to be at 40% by the end of this year, but we as a district are at 42%. It's important to note that the numbers that were set by the state were for the city of New York and not for any individual school or district. Will it get to that point? Yes, because by 2028, we should be at the end of 2028, 100%, right? With the exception of the extenuating circumstances that would be agreed upon by CSA, UFT, and the Chancellor's Office, right? But as far as where we are right now, we're in better shape than many other districts are across the city. We're at 42%. We don't have to be at 40% until the end of this year. So we're already ahead. We are working towards reducing that. I think that, to your point, we're waiting to see what the state's going to be doing about the state and the city about the funding formulas. As you heard, the chancellor has called for a reevaluation of the funding formula. I think that's going to be critically important in order to meet class size reduction with increases in salaries, increases in everything. That's going to impact. And so there has to be a change to the funding formula in order to ensure that we're meeting the state's expectations to effectively run what we're expected to run. Please note, we're the only city within the state of New York that is under this rule of law. You can go to Westchester and they're still going to have large class sizes. The intent behind this law was really for helping schools that had the most struggling students in it, right? And that was the intent. They considered New York City being a whole city, so they did it for the whole city. But when you go to Westchester, when you go to Long Island, when you go to Albany, when you go to other cities across the state, it's not for them, it's just for us. And right now, what we're trying to do is follow contractual rules while still trying to achieve that. So the city has charged us with at least moving the district by a minimum of 3% for this year. And then I'm sure they're going to set another goal for next year. And I've already intently been doing that with possibilities of mergers, with opening more schools, with being creative about like citywide or borough-wide availability for different schools. And so we're trying to help schools get their numbers, but also be able to reduce class sizes. It's not happening in all grades because there's anomalies of when kids move into a neighborhood, they're zoned to a school, they have the right to go, we have to place them, we can't take them away, and right now that's the contractual rule.
And we know that, the foundation formula is a really important place for us to push. It is for families, that those numbers, when they see the average class size is 31.
Yeah.
You know, per
Mhm.
kid.
In some schools, you're seeing that, but in other
Yeah.
schools, you don't see that, right? In other schools, you're seeing
Yeah,
a
but
lot
each
smaller.
family matters for the
Yeah,
kid.
absolutely.
So they don't see
Agreed.
that.
Yeah, understood. Yeah.
I think that we may have a little bit of misunderstanding about the district proficiency rates.
Mhm.
Because the numbers on NICED and the info hub are
Mhm.
not reflected here in this presentation. So I guess I just wanted to ask you, how are these calculated compared to that data provided by the CEC?
So which data are you talking about specifically?
So on this presentation, it says the district proficiency is 60.1%. But on the info hub for our school's website, it's 58.6% for this district for ELA. For math, this presentation says that our district's proficiency rate is 65.9%, but on the info hub for the New York City Department of Education, it is 64.1%.
So the data is being pulled from our OPAL, which is the APA, which you've known as the Academic Policy, and they're gathering that information from ATS in terms of the system where all of our students are. So where there may be some form of discrepancy there, could possibly, and I can't speak to that, I'm gonna have to look into it first and get back to you on the particular answer. Where that discrepancy could possibly be is when the data was pulled and which kids are listed in terms of being in a district or not being in a district at a particular time, but also in, as you know, when kids are in a school for a certain period of time and they leave that school, even though they test in another school, that data may not be reflective of that particular school. It might be reflective of the other school that the student was because it was a longer time they were at that school. That might be the discrepancy. I can't answer that question yet, so I'll get back to you on that question that you're asking for next month with our OPAL.
The drop in 4.2% since last year is accurate. Like if you subtract the info hub's numbers and the info hub's number from last year, it's correct. It's just that the data that the city is providing is lower than these numbers. It's actually a 2.7% increase in math since last year, but the overall proficiency rate is lower than it's stated on this presentation.
So if you look at the math, which is going to be different, if you notice, it says grades 3 through 7. So there were still 55 students who took the math grade 8 test. It's not reflective in that particular number there. Yeah.
For this district-wide proficiency?
Yeah, that's what you're saying. It says grades 3 through 7. Yeah.
Okay.
So let me work with the OPAL to get you that, but that's why that number looks different than what you're seeing in InfoHub, because in InfoHub, it would show grades 3 through 8. Here, you're seeing grades 3 through 7 because we took out the grade 8 for the purposes of it's only been 55 students because more of our students are actually taking the algebra regents. So that's probably why you're seeing the difference there. But let me make sure before I give you a particular answer. I don't want to misquote myself or give wrong information.
Okay, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think maybe if people believe in this proficiency testing, it is helpful to know and understand why the drop is so significant.
Yeah.
And a little more clarity on that would be tremendously helpful.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I mean, just specifically for our district, I understand an implementation dip, but the screener data, I think they're even here at this location, several months into it, like you could definitely tell that it was trending in this direction. And it seems that, a tremendous amount of curricula has been changed. We are actively potentially de-skilling teachers with a new sort of one-size-fits-all model. And I guess I'm just a little bit like, hey, what if it drops 4% again next year? Thank you.
Yeah.
Hans, do you have any questions?
No.
I'll go back to Vanessa before I ask.
Yeah, just a quick question about 7th grade increase. Do we know what factors, because it's consistent between math and ELA?
So we're looking at some of the factors that have to do with it. Some of it has to do with longevity, sometimes in cases of teachers, right? So there's been some teachers that have been in a particular grade long enough so that there's that consistency of that work. There's also the movement of when a student transitions from 5th grade to 6th grade, there's usually some forms of learning loss as they get into the middle school environment, they're getting to know who they are. And so sometimes we see a dip in 6th grade, and we have seen some dips in 6th grade when we look at our data. And then it goes back up in 7th grade because now they've gotten used to the environment, the changes, and now they've gotten to a rhythm. And then in 8th grade, it looks different for the dip. And there's a lot of hosts of reasons for those particular things. One of them is some of what you talked about in terms of the COVID in this particular case. Other factors are because they may be taking the algebra regions or taking in different regions, which doesn't then require them to take a particular other exam. So there's a lot of mitigating factors that impacts that. But when it comes to 7th grade, we recognize that once they start getting transitioned and fully transitioned from 6th grade, everything starts to change when they get to the 7th grade. And so we're noticing a change in like behavior in terms of ability to be more aware of who they are as individuals and self. And so that kind of changes the trajectory. But they also know that in 7th grade, some of that work is also going to count towards how that helps you to get into high school as well. And so there's also a bigger emphasis, as we see, in parents more involved in the 7th grade. And so we see a lot more parents coming to 7th grade meetings as opposed to 6th or 8th grade meetings because they know that their kids are getting ready for the next year in terms of high school applications. And 7th grade grades are usually used for, right? And so we see a lot of that happening. And then you get that little bit of fatigue in middle school kids in 8th grade. They think they're adults already and so on and so forth. There's a lot of mitigating factors that impact that. We can't pinpoint to any one thing, but we are certainly looking this year to see what some of those things and practices are, and specifically ELA as to what's happening in terms of why students are improving there more so than the other grades in middle school.
Yeah, no,
It would be nice to know what
Grade trends.
And then my question, well, first, a comment is, I really appreciate that. I think one of the issues with the way that we talk about this kind of data and education is that we talk about achievement gaps as opposed to the opportunity gaps, right? And I really appreciate that your focus is on the ways in which marginalized students have not had the opportunity to be able to stay patient as other students. And I see that through your presentation. Specifically thinking about the students the populations of students who have been chronically absent. And you mentioned that you guys are working on this. What are some of the things that you're doing?
Thank you for bringing that up. There's been a lot of things. We've been charged with being able to do things that we haven't done before. For example, possibly using some STH funding that we weren't able to use before to send attendance teachers after school hours on the weekends to visit families to see how they're doing, what's going on, and getting them motivated to come to school. And we've seen that. Like literally, the STH office will do it in a month, and then they give us the data. In these past 2 weeks, we sent this many people to this many homes, and as a result, this is the result of the chronic absenteeism going down, right? So when the families feel that someone's constantly being there and finding ways to be supportive, we've worked on utilizing the Bridging the Gap social workers, for example, for STH students in a different way than we have before in terms of how they're doing outreach and bringing supports in. I've made changes to schools in terms of leadership because sometimes the leadership can mean the difference between how the community feels with a particular school, right? Those are some things that are true factors, right? We've done house visits. I constantly monitor this. So from my perspective, in terms of holding leadership accountable at the individual schools, and any principal can tell you, schools that are not doing well in terms of chronic absenteeism, they have to come to my office and explain what's going on, why, do you know why it's going on, and what are you doing about it? They go back with their team, create a plan, and then we as a district hold them accountable for the plan of action for those particular students. That's why we went from 81% Black students to 91% on Black students in terms of attendance. We went from dropping the rates, and when you see the PowerPoint that has the actual district priorities when it comes to chronic absenteeism, we're trying to reduce that. We went from, I think it was 27% to now 23%, and our goal is to get to 21% chronic absenteeism as a whole district We moved from 6th place to 5th place to now 4th place citywide when it comes to attendance. We're really like, you can't do the work if you're not here. You can be the best teacher in the world, but if the kid's not there, it's just not going to happen. And so we're doing a lot of love and a lot of tender care, and schools are being creative. I can't say that I'm the only one. Some schools have walking school buses. What does that mean? They hire someone in their school to do a line of collecting kids whose parents might have 3 young babies, and on a snowy day or a rainy day is not going to come to bring the kid to school when they have to walk with 2 other children. We have schools who have alarm clocks that they've sent to homes to help the kids remember to wake up, because some of them may not have alarms, right? There are a multitude of things. It's not just one thing, but it's a multitude of things and a multi-tiered level of expectation. Teachers are holding accountable for certain students in their classes, 2 to 3 kids that they're tying on to. Some schools have buddies where kids are attached to someone in their school that they're a peer buddy to, like the custodian has 2 buddies that he checks in, and principals are doing that. I have a principal who has a principals club, Christina Gonzalez. She has a principals club. She monitors those kids and checks on them every single day in the morning and the afternoon. So there are things that makes a kid feel someone thinks I'm important. And in some cases, that's all that it takes. In some cases, understanding that a family is trying to go to 3 doctor's appointments and can't so how do we help that parent? In some schools, we've been able to help the hospitals do teletherapy or telework for their particular kids. And so that's been another way. We've worked with some clinics where I've personally spoken to the hospitals like NYU Langone and said, hey, so they extended their hours to 8 p.m. And now we're having kids going in the late afternoon as opposed or early morning to doctor's appointments instead of doctor hours, right? Letting parents know that, because in some families, they don't know, I may not come to school now, but I can still come in at 10 o'clock after my doctor's appointment. They don't know that. Or I can come to school and get picked up early and then go to my doctor's appointment. Some families don't know that. We've worked on trips. Some of our more affluent families want to take trips the week before because it's a lot cheaper, and we recognize that. So we work with them. Hey, we understand this. Your child hasn't taken days off, but can you take 2 days instead of 5 days, right? And helping them understand the importance of their attendance and so that's a lot of the work we've been doing in the campaign. Neil Singh on my team has been doing an amazing job with that. We've moved attendance teachers around right now in our district. I'm now in charge of the attendance teachers. So we've reprogrammed attendance teachers, and attendance teachers are now within vicinities of different schools, and we know the strong ones and the ones that struggle a little bit, and we've been aligning to who's going to provide the support to help the principal, because everything gets placed on the principal, everything. And they can't do it by themselves. And schools that don't have the same resources have a harder time doing it. And so we try to spread the wealth in supporting that work, so.
Okay, thank you so much, Superintendent Alvarez. Before I move on to the Brooklyn North High School report, I wanted to call in our city council member who is in our audience, Alexa Aviles. Yeah, because we've got some technical issues. How are you?
This is the hot seat.
This is the hot seat.
Hey, everyone. How are you? Nice and warm. Hi, where should I look here?
Yeah,
should I look here? Okay,
wherever.
anywhere.
Yeah, that works.
That works, okay. Hi, everyone. I'm City Council Member Alexa Aviles, representing District 38, which is Red Hook, Sunset Park, and portions of many other neighborhoods all the way down to Bath Beach. So I cover predominantly District 15 and some of District 20. So great to see you. Welcome back to school. Very excited to start a new year. I guess my comments are super brief. I think this meeting around the School Construction Authority is really important. There are a good number of projects across the district, across New York City. The School Construction Authority is a giant agency with a mammoth capital budget that needs to be monitored very closely. And so for those parents who are watching, that agency is under the Education Committee and the City Council, who has oversight over that agency as they do DOE. And so interest around topics and oversight questions Folks can reach out to Councilmember Rita Joseph, who is the chair of that committee at the City Council, and obviously you can reach out to your council members. I really want to thank the superintendent for his support of the principals and the schools, because, you know, these projects can be incredibly disruptive to our children, to the educators in the buildings who are having to live through it for many years in many circumstances. And there is just an enormous amount of work to be done there. And obviously we have seen projects go awry. We have seen projects that have been delivered on time and have been fine. Nevertheless, I remember my days as a parent on the PTA screaming about the cost overruns of many of these projects. So there's a lot to pay attention to here, and I would encourage everyone to really look and support their schools, their school administrations, and keep the fire on it all, that the project should be moving forward efficiently without huge cost overruns, but also in the way that will support the school's outcomes ultimately, right? So I will be here because this is in my interest, and certainly we allocate capital money to school, and it is utterly frustrating to see money sit around on the books for years and years on end when we know repairs need to be done in a much quicker time frame. So I guess other than that, I'm looking forward to this year. I think, you know, we're still very much looking at, as the chair of the Immigration Committee, disruptions around the 30, 60-day rule, where families are being moved from shelters every 30 and 60 days. School communities are very upset by this after trying to stabilize families and children, and even the folks in the neighborhood who are losing their friends, our children who are losing their friends, and the destabilization around that. Today we had a hearing on actually language access. So it's always fantastic to hear that there's accessibility happening in live time. And I will say, you know, the CECs and Education Department is doing so much better, and we still have a lot of work to do around accessibility as someone who has translated documents in the school for a parent coordinator. It is still a huge issue our city needs to confront and truly invest in. I think what we saw today is it is still not being invested in the way in order to meet the mandate of local law 30, which says our city must make language accessible. So a ton of work to do, but I thank you all for being here, for diving into these important questions for our students, and certainly working with us in support of our children and our educators. So thank you, CEC, and I wish you all a great year, and I'll see you again at the next meeting.
Thank you so much.
I said that was going to be quick, right? Is that yours?
No, it's
Yeah,
mine,
that's
it's
yours.
mine. Thank you. Okay. I imagine we have Dr. Sheila Tomlin Reed on the call. There she is. Dr. Tomlin? Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
You can unmute yourself. Oh, we have to, okay, so we're gonna have to turn, I'm gonna have to mute myself. I'm gonna have to turn back on that.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you now.
Very well. Okay, great. Wow. I'm so overwhelmed just listening to all the great things that's happening. Kudos to Superintendent Martinelli. I'm newly assigned to the Brooklyn North High Schools as the Community Affairs Associate Administrator. The point person for your CECs is Yuet. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but I do have a very brief PowerPoint presentation that I would like to share just to give parents an idea, a community idea what's ahead. Oh, yay, thank you. I said yay out loud. I'm such a kid at heart. Yay. So just to give a little background with myself, I'm a former principal for Brooklyn High School, Brooklyn North High School at Thomas Jefferson campus. for several years, and they merged my school this previous year. So I'm at the district office now, supporting the superintendency, supporting Janice Ross. And I just, drop into the CECs, introduce myself, as well as to let families know that we are here to support. So back to school was great. We had our immediate staff from the district office in every 47 schools. And so I'll let you know when the next slide, correct? Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. And we were out as the district reps to each school, touching base with principals, students, families. Was a great experience working with them on that day. Some of us had 2 schools, some of us had 3 schools, but it was a great experience just welcoming students and families back into the fold of the new year. So here are on behalf of Superintendent Ross, the district vision, mission, and the district goals. We had our principals meetings today, which is really all 47 principals came together along with our district staff. And she highlighted all the growths that the district made. And as we move forward for next month, I'm almost certain that we'll have more details in terms of that. But we just want to present the goals tonight on how she's motivating this, the school year for principals and working closely with our partnerships to ensure our vision and our mission. I did not respond earlier to the question about the chancellor because I really didn't know how to respond to that, so my apologies. So as information forthcoming, I'm sure the superintendent sent out information for parents. Is that okay? I really didn't know how to respond to that, okay? That question earlier. So each student is providing a loving and inclusive, oh, yes. So now Brooklyn, our total enrollment for the entire district is 27. However, we're moving up. Our numbers have increased. We learned today we're almost at 28. So that's an excitement. As students are coming back since COVID into the district, our high schools are inviting more students into a welcoming environment, and we are getting students into our schools. So that's our enrollment is increasing, and that's what we want. Next slide. Thank you. And of course, these are all our schools, the data profile for each school for District 15. And as we move forward, we're working on, I was talking to you because I have also other CECs, and maybe having principals present on behalf of their schools, maybe not each of them, but every now and then have a principal show up to share what's going on, particularly the newer principals. So if that would be okay, let them share and highlight what's happening in their school. And as we move forward, you will see 1 pages for each school, open house and things that they have that's happening for the school year. Next slide. And there's reimagining learning environments for student experiences. So here we're just going to highlight, next slide. I'm going to highlight different schools that have rebranded their school environment to make it more welcoming and give a narrative of their school when they walk through. And here, Principal Valley has done a wonderful job in showcasing her rebranding as a new principal. Next slide. And so you'll see various branding from different schools. If you click on, I did send a link, which so if you click on, you can see, you don't have to do it now. You'll see different ways students have highlighted their schools, as well as highlight on Instagram, speaking engagements, and things for the students to hear what's happening with their schools. Next slide. Here's another school in District 19, Maxwell. A newer principal has also Linda Link. So moving forward, like I said, I'll make sure to highlight all of District 15 for your CEC. But here I just selected several schools of brand and why it's important for students to see, have an environment of represent them and things that they, when they walk in, the students have a say in this, how they are highlighting their schools. Next slide. So here we reimagine the learning environment, how students are showing up in the furniture, coming away from most learning environments such as, certain desks, having students redesign they have a say in how they redesign their classrooms, their learning space. Next slide. So you'll just see here the way students are gathered around the classrooms, how they're learning. Next slide. Yay, you have one laying across doing her work at Brooklyn Collegiate. Yes, next slide. Yes, so reimagining classroom is just for students to have. And if for high schoolers, you want to offer a safe environment where they can just come in and feel like they're connected. Once they walk into your building, they're connected to a learning environment they can never want to leave until it's time to go home. Some students stay till 9 o'clock at night. And they take a stake in how they're providing for the community, different how they cultivate their classrooms in terms of learning spaces, architecture, designing various classroom spaces, the community work that they're doing. The community work is so important because it leads to pathways for them to have career opportunities, working with drones. This is District 19's where they are at Shirley Chisholm Park testing water. Yes, and that's the principal there with the modern technology. And here are several trips that several schools in Brooklyn North High Schools have taken throughout the district, Brazil, Ghana, Switzerland. And again, as we move forward in the school year, I'll make sure to have you share out, or maybe even have a student share their experiences as they travel to many of these places abroad. And these are ways to stay in touch with us through social media, our website, and we're building it more out so that you can have ways to contact each of us as district reps as well.
Thank you so much.
Short and sweet.
Yeah, Parliamentarian, public comment?
Yes, thank you.
Well, hold on, we need to have that on, she needs to just, bring her. You're muted. Muted. You need your volume on? So.
Are there any questions on the Spanish?
There are no questions in the Spanish line.
Any questions on the Bangla line?
There are no questions on the Bangla line.
There's no question in the Mandarin.
Screen the Zoom. The chat. Any questions of anyone in the room?
Thanks, Vivian. I just want to say what we would certainly love to have any of your high school principals present at a CEC. So I'm moving on to Katina.
No, just want to say thank you.
Thank you. So just repeat the last part. You would like to see the principals present, yes?
Yeah, we would absolutely welcome any of the high school principals from Brooklyn North to present. We had them come last year.
Oh.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
they are certainly welcome to come again.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, you got cut off, Hans? Did you?
No, fine, okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes. That's, and you have, now, okay. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to, okay, so we have now reached a point in our meeting when we can hold a vote on the filling of our vacant seats. We have 2 vacant seats. We have a general member and we have a seat for a multilingual learner. We held 3 separate candidate interviews, over 3 different meetings. We held interviews. We have 10 candidates. And I am going to pass out a piece of paper and we are, actually, you know what? We're going to do this. We're going to first hold a public comment period to ask how they would like to, if they would like to get anything to one last time on the candidate. For this, and I'll announce the names. The names are Kwame Egerton, Julia Finnegan, David Goodman, Angelica Dadunandan, Dominica Jaworski Turkham, Ariana Perdomo Tom, Brendan Spain, Elizabeth Tomasetti, Kim Wanless, Yasmin Media. All of them candidates. So I will ask the members of the public, if they have any feedback that they would like to give. If anybody has anything you'd like to say, please raise your hand or drop them out. First, please let us know if there's anybody on the invitation line that would like to say. So we are not doing member, not something we can discuss openly. So I'm going to hand out a piece of paper, I'm going to put my vote on it, and I'm going to pass it around, and everybody just vote for one person, and then we'll see where we can go from there. We're just voting right now for the general member seat, not the multi-lingual.
May I ask the process, do we like do a runoff from there or?
We will have to see how. We'll see how this works out. Members of the council could call an executive session. We got 7 votes. We could go into executive session and have a conversation about it. have 7 votes for one. Uh, I would like to ask the applicant how we're going to proceed on this, so. uh, so, for a minute. Okay, motion. Executive session. Do I have a second? All right, see where I put it in there. I'm looking for it. Yeah, this is right here. Councilmember Antonia, yes. Councilmember Vanessa Gonzalez. Yes. Councilmember Nancy Cruz, yes. Councilmember Katina Rogers. Yes. Councilmember Hanzarieta. Yes. Councilmember Denali Chutney. Yes. Councilmember Nancy Randall. Yes. Councilmember Nancy, Deadly Good. Okay, so we have. Okay, we do have. All right, so we're going to step out there. Recording. council is going to vote to seat a member. We are going to call the roll and everyone will simply say member, the name of the new member that we are going to appoint general member to CEC. What happened here though? Yeah, is that, no, it's there. Hold down. Okay, so how are we doing? Everyone's just gonna say the name. Uh, okay, or we could just, okay, motion to appoint and then we just vote, yeah, okay, all right. I'm going to make a motion to appoint Kwame Egerton from PS15, the new general member of CEC 15. Do I have a second? Second. Nancy, Randall. Okay, all right, okay. And Nancy Randall seconded. Okay, so hold the roll. Antonio Ferraro, I support Kwame Egerton. You can't edit, why can't you edit? Okay, okay. Leslie King's not here, Vanessa Gonzalez Yoga, yes. Nancy Cruz, I abstain. You go. Katina Rogers? Yes. Anzadieta?
Yeah.
Janelle Conley?
Yes.
Nancy Randall?
Yeah.
And leave it on. So with that, we have seven, and so congratulations, Kwame Egerton. And the next seat is the seat for the English language learner representative. I'm gonna make a motion to appoint Dominica Jaworski Turkan. Yes, 32. As an ELL member, do I have a second? Second. Council member Antonia Ferrara, I support Dominica Jaworski. It should be. What if you? Refresh. Councilmember Vanessa Gonzalez Lopez. I support. Councilmember Nancy Cruz, yes. Councilmember Katrina Rogers. Yes. Councilmember John Davis. Councilmember John.
Yeah.
Janelle Chummy. Yes. Councilmember Nancy Randall. Yeah. And with that, we have 8. Congratulations to Dominica. For seat. Where are my glasses? It's long, it's easy. Congratulations. I will be in touch with both of you to onboard you. Council. And I look forward to having a full council. So let's move on to the OmniCards resolution. We'll share it on my screen. You know, and somebody else. Oh, okay. Okay, resolution to ensure equitable access to Omni cards for all New York City public school students. I wonder if I should turn on my microphone. Are they, you can hear me well? Oh, I guess it was all the ambient noise from the other room. Okay, never mind. Whereas the Metropolitan Transportation Authority and New York City Public Schools provide students Omni cards. Student Metro cards granting students access to public transportation 24 hours per day, 7 days per week, with 4 rides per day on all MTA subway lines, local, limited, and certain buses, as well as Staten Island Railway, the Roosevelt Island Tram, and the Hudson Rail Link, including free transfers. Whereas transportation eligibility for student OMNY cards is currently based on a student's grade level and the distance between home and school, which excludes students who live less than 0.5 miles from their school, regardless of their need for public transportation, for extracurricular activities, after school employment, or other essential commitments. And whereas many students participate in after-school activities, academic enrichment, and related services, and other essential commitments that are more than 0.5 miles from their homes, requiring reliable and accessible public transportation. Whereas access to public transportation provides teens with essential independence, mobility, and the ability to make choices that support their educational and professional growth, making reliable public transportation crucial for students' access to these opportunities and essential commitments. Whereas the city's initiative to expand youth career pathways and job training programs across all boroughs has resulted in a growing need for reliable public transportation to connect students to educational, career, and economic opportunities that are increasingly dispersed throughout New York City. Whereas many students, including those with disabilities, face challenges in accessing public transportation due to the limitations of current eligibility rules, which do not account for geographic barriers, safety concerns, or the need for accessible transportation options. Whereas students with disabilities who receive specialized busing as part of the individual education program are excluded from receiving student OMNY cards, limiting their ability to participate fully in programs, extracurricular activities, and weekend events. Whereas the current policy of providing only one form of transportation, either bus or Omni card, to students with disabilities and their chances of registration AAL1 is outdated and discriminatory, as it does not reflect the extended capabilities of new student OMNY card system, which offers 24/7 access and increased flexibility. Whereas the policy of offering only special program 2-trip Omni passes as an alternative for students who are not eligible for regular Omni cards is inadequate and inequitable. These 2-trip passes restricted to specific conditions do not provide the same level of flexibility and access as standard 4-trip Omni cards, leaving many students without sufficient transportation options for their educational and personal development needs. Whereas the application process for obtaining special program 2-trip Omni passes is complex and burdensome for parents and guardians, creating additional barriers for families who may already be struggling to navigate the educational and transportation systems. There is a need for clearer, more accessible information on eligibility and application procedures to ensure all families can exercise their rights to transportation assistance. Whereas the equitable distribution of student Omni cards is essential for ensuring that all students, including those from low-income households and those with disabilities, have the opportunity to participate fully in educational and curricular activities without financial or logistical barriers. Therefore, be it resolved that the Community Education Council District 19 demands that New York City Public Schools, in collaboration with the MTA, provide student Omni cards to all public school students, regardless of the distance they live in from their school, to support their educational, extracurricular, and personal development needs. Be it further resolved that New York City Public School and the MTA ensure that students with disabilities who receive specialized busing as part of their IEPs are also eligible to receive student Omni cards to access public transportation for activities beyond regular hours without being forced to choose between transportation options. Be it further resolved that Chancellor's Regulation A801 be reviewed and amended to eliminate discriminatory policies and ensure that all students, regardless of disability status or residential distance, have equal access to public transportation. Be it further resolved that future student Omni cards be produced with durable waterproof materials to prevent damage and reduce the need for replacements, ensuring reliable access to all students. Be it further resolved that New York City Public Schools provide comprehensive multimodal guides for families to better understand their transportation rights and the application process for special program 2-trip Omni passes, ensuring that all families can easily access necessary transportation support for their children. And be it further resolved that the New York City Public Schools, in partnership with the MTA, actively engage with parents, educators, and advocates to address and resolve any issues related to the distribution and the use of student Omni cards, ensuring that the system supports the diverse needs of the city's student population. Now it would seem that we no longer have quorum. We lost 2 members. So we will not be able to vote on this tonight, but at least we were able to share it with the public. We can certainly take public comments and on this. So I will turn it over to parliamentarian.
If there anyone in the chat that would like to make a comment, raise your hand or write a question or comment in the chat. Interpreters, could you please let me know if there's anyone in any of the interpretation lines that would like to make a comment?
There are no questions on the Bangla line.
There's no question.
There's no question in the Spanish line, but I would like to say that we couldn't interpret what you guys are saying because the choppy sound that we are getting here.
They still can't hear us.
That's what you're saying. I don't know if you guys have to speak louder, but or mute it and let your speaker back.
We're hearing that other people, I don't know, it doesn't matter, they can't hear it, I don't. We should just start using their microphone.
For letting us know. Hans, do you have any questions or comments?
No questions. Thank you so much for,
Yeah.
it was a really great job. Thank you to think about students. That's great. That's very even for the whole city, a rich city. Thank you.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly. So the resolution is not asking for the 4-trip Omni cards for all students university. It's still differentiating 4 trips for students who do not receive busing and 2 trips for students who do receive busing.
Well, the first therefore be it resolved said that the community education demands that the New York City Public Schools, in collaboration with the MTA, provide student Omni cards to all public school students, regardless of the distance they live from their schools, to support their educational, extracurricular, and personal development. So that means, oh no, that doesn't necessarily mean
To all
students,
So regardless, I guess it could be more clear saying regardless of IPs that may receive or.
whether they get bus, because that's the mitigating factor. It's either you have busing or you don't, and you live 0.5 miles from it.
And then that would also change one of the later, be it further resolved, the second to the last one, which specify something about the special program 2-trip omnibuses, which would be, that would be obsolete, right?
So we have two issues, right? We don't have clear information right now, and it's really, really hard for people that do receive busing
Yeah.
to get the 2-trip omnibus cards.
Mhm.
So in the interim, and I guess that can be more clear,
Mhm.
while this issue, maybe we can solve it all and get for way tickets or only bus pass to all students, and
Yeah.
this will be obsolete as mentioned. But if that's not get resolved quickly, and I do not understand, maybe Rafael can enlighten us here, what are the logistics behind or the contracts behind the DOE getting the Omni cards with the city of New York and the MTA and how does it
MTA is beyond just New York City. Remember, like when things happen with MTA, the mayor, the governor always gets involved. So this had to do with the amount of money it's costing. That's really what this is. It's cost. And so the the two-way Omni card is so that, because the intent is for them to be able to get the services. So it would have to be those special events that are not within their already school community. So like, it would be like a PSAL thing, that you would go from here and have to go to a field to get the additional Metro 2 pass versus the 4 pass. The 4 pass is for those who fit within the realm of that 0.5 miles or, right? And so that's where the issue is. The families with IEPs, the concern has been, at least the ones that have been brought to my attention that we forwarded to OPT, is based on the fact that those children wouldn't be eligible because they have busing to go home to and from school. The argument from parents of students with IEPs is that what about the enriching experience in the summer and the weekends? And I think, and I can't speak to it because I'm not MTA and I didn't make the negotiation between the two, but that was a negotiation between the DOE and the MTA. And note that all this comes at a cost. So what's the cost? It's not free. Everyone thinks it's free. It would be free for the families, but it's not free to pay for it because it's still a service that's being paid for. And so those swipes do add up to dollars that are equated to having to be paid.
So I guess that's where the logistics come in on like figuring out what could likely happen soon, right? Like, are we going to advocate for something that it's more likely to happen, that we get extended 4 trips for every student? Or that some of these limitations that are not imposed on the students that get 4 trips.
But would that extra cost be imposed too, right? So if we're gonna say that this is something we have to do and it's not budgeted for in a fiscal year, then how do we do that? What does the MTA usually do when they're not meeting their budgetary needs? Might increase fares for everyone else, right? So those are mitigating factors that I would assume would be a part of this conversation, because the money has to come from somewhere, because it's actually funded. So it's not where everybody, I think what happens is everybody here is free and then automatically assume, oh, they're just doing it to let them swipe. And what does it matter? It's the city, it's not the city's agency. Remember, Metro Transit Authority is not necessarily just New York City subways. That includes Long Island Railroads, Metro North, i.e. some of it's in partnership with MTA, the city, but also MTA state. And so that's funding that has to come from somewhere to pay for it. So if we're gonna add more students past the allocation of what was already intended and budgeted for, that money's gotta come from somewhere. So where does that money come from? Either the extended budget that MTA has, some mysterious budget that the DOE has, or are we gonna put the price on regular consumers who use mass transit, right? Raising the price of the fares in general, right? And that happens. We're one of the very few cities that has a fixed rate, no matter where you go, 24/7. You go to Washington DC, Metro, you go to Atlanta, the MARTA, all those subway systems are based on zone and peak and off-peak times, just like you do in Europe as well. So the city tries to keep that cost low because we are a large city that, 8.1 million people on a daily, and about 20 million people pass by this city on a daily basis. So they're able to relatively keep the fares low
we complain when we get an extra 10 cents or 50 cents added, but in reality, that's relatively very low compared to the rest of the country that has mass transit systems. And many of the systems close. If you go to Atlanta, they close, I think, at 11 PM or 12 PM. I know definitely Washington DC shuts down at 12 o'clock. They don't even care if it's an event. You're gonna have to Uber home. And I know that because I have property in DC. So I guess the request makes sense to create the resolution and let them figure out what they can and cannot do to meet the needs. I just want you guys all to be aware of the impact that it has on making sure, right?
Yeah.
Because there is an impact. Somebody's gonna have to take the cost, whether it's the taxpayer, whether it's the commuter, or somebody has to take the cost because the money is budgeted for this particular reason. I think we've been fortunate as a city to be able to at least have an Omni card for a large portion of our kids. It's not everybody, but a large portion of our kids are getting it. I think that's amazing because we've never had that before. We've been advocating for that at 676 last year to be able to take the ferries and things like that. Now they're gonna be able to, most of the students. I'm just not sure how we go about, I'm thinking from not a superintendent, but as an individual person who lives in the city who pays taxes, how do we pay for it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. I think
Yeah.
we all see that there's a cost to it, but it's not right the way that it's being laid out right now. And as a CEC, I think our role is
Yeah.
to put a resolution out there that expresses what we think is right. It puts some suggested wording in to I think reflect what you were saying. Yeah, those contingencies. But this is great.
I don't, I think we're coming up on the end of it.
I will just say that I'm really blown away by whoever thought of this, that they didn't consider the fact that A, kids lose their cards. B, these cards can easily be damaged, and they didn't consider that these are kids, teenagers, young adults, 10-year-old, they destroy them.
I think they wanted them to lose.
I think so too, because I mean, it's pretty unfortunate that now they say that there's at my son's school, many of his friends have been told, you lost it, you don't get a replacement card, right? Yes, kids might be selling them too. They should have considered that. Like, these are people getting paid a lot of money to think through these things. And I don't know what, other than believing that, yes, the conspiracy to get them to lose it, like, there was negligence in making it. So that's my 2 cents. All right.
All right. I'm gonna stop sharing this. We can't vote on it. We'll put it on the agenda for next meeting. I'm going to make a motion to, oh wait, we have to do general public. Nancy, gotta do general public comment.
Is there anyone in the chat, in the Zoom, who would like to make a comment? Interpreters, please let me know if there's one in your minds that is just making a comment or asking a question. No, we have.
Okay, then I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn at 9:26. Yeah, and it's been seconded by Vanessa. Hey, good night, folks. Thank you so much.
Elsewhere?
Oh, yeah. In Charlotte?
Thank you, interpretation, you're dismissed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.